time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by PSE Archery,
Buck Baits,
Better the Hunt,
Rebel 6 Rubs and Seasonings,
Easy Cut,
Lim Walker Game Calls,
Sunrise Archery,
Total Peep,
Hunter's Blend Coffee,
Packer Max,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Scent Blocker,
Scent Lock,
Copper John,
and Stanislawski Release Aids.
Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal. Everybody, host Mike Adams sitting in the cabin tonight on a glorious Sunday evening here in Michigan.
We are back.
Great weather. I've seen critters stirring all day today. I've seen a lot of turkey. I've seen some deer. It's just a beautiful time to be outside right now in Michigan. I was actually up at camp helping out with a few things up there this weekend. Things are looking good.
How's colors?
At camp, they're not there.
Okay.
But 20 miles south, strangely enough, they're starting to pop.
Oh, gotcha.
So
Mark Coleman likes my shirt.
Yeah.
You like that? You like
Easy
this?
Cut, yeah.
I got the
You
Easy
got
Cut
the Easy Cut going. I got the PSC rocking tonight. For once, we don't have the same shirt on, but we are wearing the same hat, and that wasn't planned either.
Right.
As usual.
So you know what? So the colors, see, that's the weird thing about how these colors are rolling, right?
Yeah.
See, now I'm going to head up to the UP next weekend, and I wonder if there'll be any color at all, or it's going to be passed.
They said it's past peak. So
Okay, so good.
But what's not past peak yet is our friends that help us. So let's help them help our listeners and viewers.
That's right, folks. If you can go over and support our supporters, it helps both of us. And there's nothing like going over to Buck Baits. Going out, check over their lineup, their scents, their cover scents. They've got a few other backpacks and items on their list. But get over there and you can get a discount of 20% over there if you use the promo code UpNorthJournal when you check out at buckbaits.com. But even then, you can still be grilling, and there's nothing better than using Rebel 6 Rubs over at rebel6rubs.com. Use the promo code NorthJournal on your way out at checkout, and you'll get 20% off. But last but not least, what we're drinking in the studio now is Hunter's Blend, and there's nothing better than going over to Hunter's Blend Coffee and using the promo code capital UNJ. And
That my finger's waving at right there.
that's right. When you check out, you'll get your discount there.
So there you go.
There you go. So, yep. Mark Allen just got home from Pigeon. Saw one nice buck at about 70 yards.
Good deal.
Absolutely. You know, I did a live drop Thursday.
You did. I saw that.
And one of the questions that I always had, and I really never used them. I've kind of used them, but I've never been a true blue person to use them. And I needed to know some answers. So I said, you know what? What better way to do it than get somebody on to interview about lighted nock?
Right?
So I figured I'd reach out to Lumenock's one and only Bill Reich and have him come on the show and talk about Lumenock.
How's it going, Bill?
Oh, it's going, man. It's going. How you guys doing up there?
We had a beautiful day. It's nice out. I got a little run in today and getting ready for season. And we're anxiously awaiting to start slinging some arrows here just as soon as we can. So,
amen.
So,
Amen.
Where's Carbondale, Illinois? That's where you reside at. So, tell everybody kind of where that's at.
Well, I'm roughly about a half hour north of Paducah, Kentucky, probably about an hour away from the southeast corner of Missouri, and another hour-ish over to Indiana.
All right, so you're down there in what they call the tri-state or quad-state area. Man, you're down in God's country, man. That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, they definitely grow some big deer down here. I think 35 miles northeast of me is where two of the national record deer, free range, mind you, the Brewster buck, and I forgot the other one, but they were taken about 35 or 40 miles northeast of me here. And man, that one, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say it was a 52 point deer. I mean, in free range. I mean, nowhere near any 12-foot, 12-foot operation. And, it didn't have a chance to get out of one because, well, there isn't one around there.
Right. No, that's a beautiful area down there, man.
Just a ridiculous deer, though. If y'all haven't checked that one out, I would definitely, kind of do a quick Google of the Brewster buck. And, man, that thing is absolutely just ridiculous.
52 points.
I mean, yes, sir.
That's a point for every week of the year.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a weak buck, a weekly buck of growing, obviously, but 52 points is just an incredible number.
I forgot what the actual measurement on it was, but I mean, 52 points on a free range animal, and I believe the gentleman that took it was actually from Virginia and came into Southern Illinois to hunt with his buddies. And just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and that thing it come rolling out, and he laid into it, and I'll be dipped. I mean, I've seen that thing. I've seen the mount, in person several times, and it is just absolutely majestic. And I couldn't even fathom, what would go through my head, buck fever wise or anything else. If I saw something like that walking around, I'd be questioning my eyes. And
right?
I just see that, right?
Right? No doubt about it.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, Christ, like I know my hand would be like, shaking like it was going out of style. So I'd have to try to get the breathing under control. But we do what we can do. Sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. Take the good with the bad, and move on to the next one.
That's usually how it goes. You roll with it and you try to figure it out. And whether you come across a Brewster buck like that, or maybe it's your first buck out in the wild or anything like that, it's one of those things that you just kind of, like you said, relax your breathing, figure it out, and whether it be you want to call it buck fever or whatever it might be. But that's one of the enjoyments of hunting. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Whether it be your first buck, one of your plenty bucks, or maybe even a doe, you still get that super excitedness that you were able to take a deer and harvest it and feed your family. Yep. And it's just, I think the more joy I get out of it is knowing what we're doing with the meat after, whether it be breakfast sausage, yep, hunter sausage, steaks on the grill, something like that. I think it's just been a really cool thing that we are able to do as hunters, is provide back to the table. And a Brewster buck would be awesome, but I'll take a doe like you did last week, right?
Yeah, that was a big old girl. I shot her with my crossbow. It was the first hunt that crossbow had been out on, and roughly an hour into the morning, a group of 4 pretty much identical big doe came out, and I'm like, well, eeny, meeny, miny, thwack.
All
and
right.
then it was on from there. And I mean, I think we could probably kind of sum up the buck fever or doe, just deer fever.
There you go. All right. So hold on one second. Let's take a quick break. We got to take care of some technical issues here, and we'll be right back.
PSE Archery has reinvented the way you buy bows.
From now on, you can make the most educated decision possible
by basing your bow choice specifically on your shooting needs and goals.
All you need to do is ask yourself, what kind of shooter am I? What do I want to achieve?
PSE will help find the right category for you.
So, what kind of shooter are you?
Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back. Second segment of the show. For those of you on the live stream, we're back on. And for those of you on the podcast, we threw real quick to a break so we could get the internet fixed. We're back up and running here. So before we left for the break, though, when we dropped off the internet, we were talking a little bit about your doe hunt. So let's back up a little bit. And Danny, ask your question again.
Yeah. So, when did your season open up in Illinois?
October 1st.
Okay. So you got a doe right off the bat.
Within the first hour, yes.
There you go.
The
first hour you were done doe hunting.
Yeah,
you gotta like that.
And in Illinois, we can shoot as many doe as we want. We're limited to 2 bucks.
Okay.
Whether it be during gun season or archery, you could take 1 archery and 1 gun, or 2 archery, and that's it for the buck situation. And I know some of the counties up north have the late antlerless hunt, where it's somewhat of the potential CWD areas up there more toward, the Wisconsin line, all the way up north. And there's a few scattered counties from me north a little bit, but, when you get up toward that Wisconsin line, that's where they've got the majority of those late winter hunts to try to. I don't know if that's actually a solution for it or not. I don't think anybody knows, to be honest with you, because you can ask 10 different guys and they're going to tell you 10 different things.
Yeah, we've had many a discussion, spent a lot of time here talking on the show about that. So let's talk about some good stuff.
Right, exactly. So
I don't even want to get into that contest per se, because it's nothing good's going to happen with it.
No, it's a minefield.
No, it's a minefield, and up in the UP where I hunt, I can't shoot does, and there's a whole big thing about it, and it just makes me boil.
Yeah.
They say we don't have enough deer, and because they were going to allow it, then they changed the rule a little bit because I have so much snow for X amount of days, and I can't shoot a doe. But I can look at wolves and coyotes and bears, oh my, all over the place. So, anyways.
Wow, hey, that's weird. And I mean, I would one of the products I use, Zeus broadheads. The inventor is up in New Jersey, and they have a program where it's earn a buck. So you actually have to shoot a doe first before you can even lay into a buck. And I mean, it's weird hearing all over the nation what the different regulations are, and
it is amazing that what you just said is one of the conversations that has been all over the board of what can we do to be for the deer better and whatnot. And one of the solutions was earn a buck. Oh no, we can't do that. Let's try. No, can't do that. Let's try. No, can't do it. It is a political minefield how it works up here in Michigan, and it's one of those things you just.
All right, enough talking about politics. Let's get into some good stuff.
It's just one of those things. So you got your doe, and you know what? You must have been using Lumenok on them, right?
Yeah, I might have.
Okay, so what color were you using?
That one was a pink, which actually glows more red. The nock itself is colored pink, so thusly the name of Pink Lumenok. Once it's activated, in my eyes it glows red. Some people say it's an off pink. Whatever you want to call it, it's bright.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I know with a lighted nock, I would assume that you want is a bright light. So when you shoot the thing and it's either in the deer running away or it went through the deer, you see where it went.
Yep.
And was your shot on this doe a pass through?
No, it was actually a very odd one. I had a broadside shot, and it was at about 60 yards. I got my 60-yard line on her, and I don't know if she did a little bit of a move to the right, and instead of hitting behind the shoulder, it went in right in front of the right shoulder. And that's the way that I found her on the ground about 50 yards later, and the only thing that was sticking out of the deer was the fletching and the nock, which was a pretty cool picture, mind you.
Okay, definitely.
A little bit on the gory side, a little bit of blood coming out. I mean, really not the washed off pick or anything like that. But I mean, I found her within 50 yards after the shot, and I mean, I'd been playing, with that crossbow pretty much about daily, and I mean, I know I was every time. So the only thing I can figure out is that she heard, that when I shot, and she just moved just a few inches, and that's where it caught her, and broken scapula, broken ribs, double lung and heart shot. She wasn't going to go far.
Oh, awesome. Well, good. And you have the live nock to lead the way, right? So speaking of Lumenok, let's go through, you got one. Can you take us through the construction of Lumenok, how they're kind of constructed and how they fit into the arrow?
Yep. Well, as far as it goes, the owners and inventors of the entire lighted nock category wanted to keep it as simple as humanly possible. They didn't want moving parts that can fail. They didn't want anything else on it that can fail. It's a very simple concept, much like a light switch in your house. They require a carbon arrow, a full carbon arrow, because carbon is conductive, to be able to complete the circuit, because the Lumenocks have two little tabs sticking out each side, if I could talk, of the nock. And once they come in contact with that, the carbon arrow, it completes the circuit. Thusly, the light comes on, and it turns on from a minimum of 20 pounds of pressure. That little bit on the low side there, but it will activate depending on how they're installed. And one of the biggest things that I have over the last couple years had to deal with was I'm not too politically correct. I'm straightforward, so I'm just going to let it rip. Most of the problems that I've heard about have been, an operator or installation error. And that's why the owners have this great thing here that comes with every single pack of Nocks. This is not instructions. This is stuff you must know. So it's okay for guys to read them. They're allowed to. It's not instruction, so it's okay. We can actually read it.
Nice.
But I do. That's going to cover 98% of any kind of problems that people were having. If there was too tight a fit, there's some raised notches on the shaft of the nock, and you can actually shave those down with a sharp knife or a razor, obviously being careful not to slice yourself in the process, but that's what they're there for. We want a tight fit. We don't want too tight where you're 200 pounds a guy trying to use all your weight to get the nock into the arrow.
You want a nice snug fit.
Yeah, you don't want it too loose either. I've heard stories that, and it hasn't been with Lumenok, but if they had I've heard the nock stayed on the draw line, and
Whoops.
You don't want that to happen either. But like I said, Lumenok requires a full carbon arrow or bolt for that matter. To be able to complete the circuit, much like the light switch in your house. It's made simply. There's no moving parts on it, no tools necessary to turn the nock off, although there is a pretty neat little one that I do like to use on a regular basis, and that would be this little thing here. It's called the nock extinguisher. It's also an arrow puller. So if you go to your buddy's house and he's got a stubborn target, I carry this around just clipped right on my arrow in my quiver, or in either quiver on the crossbow, or on my target quiver and on my hunting quiver. And if you've got slippery hands after you've taken a deer and you want to shut your nock off, well, this thing comes in really handy. And like I said, even go to your buddy's house and that stubborn target, you have an arrow puller with you.
Dual purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And all right, here's the green. All right.
Oh, that's pretty bright coming through the screen on it's pretty bright.
Yeah. But realistically, thumb, forefinger, wiggle it just a wee little bit to break that contact, and the nock's off. No moving parts, no tools, no nothing. The other cool thing is this extinguisher. You put it on, you got the ears of the nock up, down, or, however you want to do it, sideways. I usually go up, down. You put your extinguisher on there, give it a quick little shake, and boom, it's off.
Nice.
A little shake and it's gone.
Well, we got a couple of questions coming in here for you. That we got some viewers here asking. First one is how long? So let's say you shoot at a deer and you go out to track it, but you leave the arrow laying there on the ground so you know where your point of reference is to start. How long will that nock stay lit once it's turned on?
On an average, 40 continuous hours. And I've shot a deer, and I've found the arrow and the nock actually about 9 days later. And I mean, it was dim as anything, but it was enough in the dark for me to be able to find that arrow. But on the average 40 continuous hours. So if you take a deer in the morning and, you can't find the arrow or the bolt, you can leave it lay until it gets dark out again and walk out and get your arrow without any kind of a problem, turn it off, put it back in your quiver and it's ready to go for the next morning.
Okay. And then we got a question here from Mark Coleman. You actually mentioned you were talking about bolts, and he's got a question. He said he just ordered the flat nocks for his crossbow. Any tips on using them or installing them, because he's hearing mixed reviews about how they fit? Can you give him some advice about installation on his crossbow bolts?
Okay, well, does he have the Lumenok package there?
That's a good question. Don't know. Maybe we'll get something.
He
here.
just ordered.
He just ordered them.
He just ordered them, so he's just kind of hearing things about them. He ordered them.
Oh, he's not received them yet.
Not yet.
He just ordered them today.
So what should he be looking for when he gets that package?
It just the same thing when he gets that package, whether it's this style, the fold open one, or if he gets a plastic one, it'll have this insert in it. And like I said, if you go through that stuff you must know, that's going to eliminate any kind of the majority, 98% of any kind of problems or issues that you're going to have with any kind of installation. First thing, if they're a little bit on the tight side, you can actually use beeswax, crayon, candle wax as a little bit of lubrication to get the knockdown into the shaft of that arrow or bolt, whatever the case may be. It's the same thing, bolts or compound arrows. Other than that, if it's still a bit too tight, that's where you're going to get into the shaving the set thing. And right when you pull that nock out of that package, you can feel around the shaft of it. You'll feel the raised, hot notches or something. You'll feel them, and then you just, you get the razor, just shave it off just a little bit, try it again, and then, it should start sliding in a little bit easier. But like I said, we want a very snug fit, but we don't, want something that it's going to take, 200 pounds of guy on the top of an arrow to get that knot in there. Yeah.
Exactly. I get it. Just snug.
And once again, they're not instructions. They're things you need to know.
Things you need to know, like a checklist.
Must know.
Right.
Things you must know, because guys don't read instructions.
Yep. You showed us a green one. What colors do Lumenocks all come in?
Well, there's 3 different colors. You've got pink, HD orange, and green. With the pink Nocks, which actually I see the best, you have a part of that purchase price. Those pink Nocks actually gets donated to St. Jude's Children's Hospital and helping out those great kids over there, man. I mean, it's a win-win. I mean, they're bright as heck. The kids get a donation for a lot of stuff that they need. And, it's a great program. And that's one of the things that I really do love about that situation. And, but what's kind of cool is at the shows that I do, you'll have 3 guys that come up and one saying, okay, well, I don't see this one. I walk 20 feet away, and then each of those guys could say that they either see, one says they see green better, one says HD orange is better, and then the other one pink is better.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of one of those interesting things that you can do at shows, and it's just, it's just kind of fun to do, and because they don't realize it. I've had guys come up and say, well, yeah, they're not bright, this, that, the other. And I'm like, well, what color? What color did you have? And he said, they say green. I'm like, well, hold on a second. Let me walk away. And they're like, wow, I see that HD orange a lot better. I'm like, everybody's eyes are different.
That's right.
And they see colors.
Absolutely. That's a true statement about seeing different colors. But I noticed also, we're looking at the website right now, that not one Lumenok is created equal, because you've got S Nocks, H Nocks, GT Nocks, and X Nocks. What's that all about?
GT 0.246 for gold. The majority of gold tip arrows, there's 1 or 2 that are a little bit on the odd size, and I right now it's escaping my mind.
Mm-hmm.
but then the 244 and 245 are the S nock. And that's going to be the majority of arrows out there. The H is 0.234, and the X is 0.204 inner diameter on the shafts. And if you're someone who likes to shoot the micro diameter ones, we actually make an adapter called the H adapter.
Okay.
And what that is you'll have to call the office directly and give them the information on your arrow, your micro diameter shafts, and then they custom make those adapters
and
per order.
Right. You're talking, from what I'm looking at, we're looking at actually I went to the website and I went to the Nocks selector, and we're looking at the different sizes that you have, and that Lumenok H with the nock adapter says 4 millimeters ish, but like you said, just simply call the office and find out what you need for your small diameter.
Yep, they custom make those adapters per order. There's not a stock of them, because there's so many different arrows that have been coming out here in the micro diameter, size here as of, the last few years. They seem to be making a big comeback. I mean, I remember, probably, 15 plus years ago, they were a big thing coming in, and and they kind of just, faded by the wayside. And now it seems they're making a little bit of a comeback. But that H adapter fits that 0.234 nock. And reason that adapter is made is the fact that Lumenok will not sacrifice quality to make a small enough nock to fit into that shaft. They'd have to take away too much of the material, which would make it way less durable than what Lumenok is known for.
Right,
and
exactly. So they're not going to throw it down the drain. Their reputation, their name, everything they're built on just for that.
Yep.
Well, I tell you what. Go ahead.
Those adapters get sent to you with a little piece of sandpaper to prep your arrow, glue, and the instructions on how to go ahead and, glue those outserts onto your arrows. And then the rest is the same process in the stuff you must know, not instructions. The stuff you must know that comes in every package of the Lumenoks, whether it be bolts or crossbow nocks or compound.
Okay. Well, we got a couple questions here, but we want to save them. We're going to take a break real quick. Step outside. When we come back, we got 2 questions here, at least right now. If we get some more in the break, then we'll ask them when we come back. So we'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has always dominated the speed category. Now, the most revolutionary cam system ever to hit the market has perfected the shooting experience. Introducing PSE's Evolve Cam System, featuring extremely high let-off capabilities and the smoothest draw cycle in history. No other cam system has ever delivered this level of total comfort and total control. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Welcome back. Third segment of the show. I'm getting behind myself here.
Right.
So I had a little bit of technical difficulty to get started with. I'm kind of confused here.
I know.
But we've got some questions piling in here for you.
Let's go. Let's start. We talked about the nocks for the regular bows being you go to the nock selector. Let's talk about the crossbow one, because basically there's really 2, right? You've got the half moons and you've got the flats. Correct? Is that how?
No. Parker is what's called a capture, which is pretty, just for lack of a better description, it's pretty comparable to what you'd expect on like a compound nock that'll slide on the string, more U-shaped. Then there's a crescent, and then there's the flat, and a lot of people that they may prefer the flat over the crescent, but the capture nocks were generally made for Parker bows, and or Parker crossbows rather. And then as long as there's a Parker bow out there, we will make the capture nocks for those bows. Just because the company went out of business doesn't mean that we're not going to help them, get the right nock for the crossbow that they have.
Exactly. So what colors does the crossbow ones come in?
Same green, HD orange, and pink, and it's the same deal with St. Jude's on the crossbow side too.
Okay, that is awesome. So we got the same colors for the crossbow. Now, questions for the crossbow. We got coming in. First off, one question about the whole entire line. Is there any plans, do you know of making a blinker or maybe a strobe type nock for the future of Lumenok?
That I can't. I don't know 100%, but okay. I know as of right now that they're not really planning on it. As far as it goes, when you're getting into stuff like that, you're having to add extra battery power, and then as you add extra battery power, you're adding more weight to the back end of that arrow that you're going to have to compensate for. And our batteries now, like I said, have a continuous runtime of 40 hours, and there's been a lot of testing done to make these colors. They're the ones that are the majority that stand out the best to most people. And they don't want to have to go to a two battery system to be able to to do that, and that's kind of just the way that it is right now. And I can't speak 100% for the future, but as of right now, I'm not aware of anything that's going to be into any different colors than what we already make. Or getting into that flashing thing, and I really haven't heard anything about the Bluetooth.
Right. There's also, they got the Bluetooth out there. Another question. Do you have any preference between the half moon and the flats? What's your opinions of it?
As far as that goes, that's going to be user preference. I personally shoot the crescent. It seems to work for me. I've heard some people say that, with the crescent on there, the back of the bolt is raised up a little bit or something like that, and then they prefer the flat because of that reason. A lot of it's user preference. I mean, just like, what arrow size do you want to use? Again, user preference. And I mean, you get, like I said, the GT, those are gold tip, and those actually only come in orange and green, because of the mold being so similar. The pink, I guess, would get very confusing, and I'm kind of confused on that story myself. I've heard it a couple different ways, but either way, like I said, the GT only comes in the HD orange or the green, but every other one comes in all three colors, including all the compound bolts or crossbow bolts. And same thing on that Nocks selector. You can select compound or crossbow, your model of your arrow, and the manufacturer of that arrow or bolt, and it'll take you to the area where you need then you make the choice on what color or what style you want to use. And a lot of them, they have all three. You can use crescent, flat, or even capture on a lot of them, and so it really is personal preference.
Okay, there you go. So with that being said, do you if you use a half moon, do you use a flat? Is there any change that you need to do if you're using one or the other? If you start off using the half moons, and let's say you get flats, is there going to be any difference between the two in your crossbow if you've got one of each and you're going to shoot them? Or
you know what? I've actually never done. But now that you brought it up, I'll actually probably go ahead and do that. Maybe do a video on it here in the future. I'll get a set of flats and install them and maybe give it a rip at that point. But as far as I know, no, it's really user preference. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard anything like that or done anything like that at this point. But again, since you brought it up, that might be something actually pretty cool to play with.
Well, looking at that, I just made me think of something. Talking about weight issues, they're shaped differently. It's probably very minuscule, but I know a lot of guys are concerned with making things weight forward and loading on the front end of an arrow, front of center and things of that nature. I mean, when we're talking about the nock, there's very little weight there. But what do those actually weigh compared to a regular nock? Do you know?
They're about 10 grains heavier than a normal nock that comes in, whatever stock arrows that you get. I believe they come in at 24 or 26 grains, and then I believe the average nock is somewhere right about 14.
Okay.
So it really, when you're coming down to something in the aspect of that little bit of grain, I've not noticed anything really different when I go out shoot 40, 60 yards, and I'll pull a stock nock out, put a new Lumenok in, and I'll still be right where I need to be. And I mean that's just so minuscule. I mean that's like you put several dashes of salt into your palm, and that's going to come out. That's going to come out to be that grain difference. And yeah, some people they're very concerned about it. But in my experience and in my opinion, I've not seen any flight differences or any adjustments that I needed to make. They were, I swapped them out and they were 3 inches low. No, I've not seen anything like that at all. And, I can't tell you what's going to happen at, 150 yards. But I know I shoot, 60 pretty regularly, and I have no issue. I'll pull, like I said, the nock that came in the arrow, put in my Lumenok, and it's off to the races, and that's about all I got on that.
Okay, well, we got a statement here from one of our listeners who we actually know, and he is a former bow mechanic, worked at one of the shops here in the area, and he says, talking about the crossbows, what we're just talking about switching from like a half moon to a flat nock, and he's saying that the tolerances on these are really tight, and he says you need to be very careful when switching from what the manufacturer actually suggests, because he's actually seen some come in with some damage done by switching because of the actual end user didn't like the style. So he said before you start switching back and forth, he said you need to really pay attention to that and stick with what the manufacturers are putting on the ends of their bolts. So I think that's pretty good advice. Maybe talk to your pro shop before you do something like that to make sure it's okay.
Oh yeah, and I mean when you go onto that nock selector, you go into the the catalog, and the tolerances are if Lumenok makes them, they can operate on that specific bolt in that size. And if they're listed across the board, say .300 GTC, which is the crescent, the GT F, which is the flat, and then you got the capture. And if those are listed across the board, they're designed to be able to deal with those tolerances that are made by said crossbow manufacturer.
Exactly. That's one of the things. Always be careful. Always check your, some, especially this day and age with tolerances and everything, that how Swiss watch type things we're getting. Just that little bit. You don't need an accident to happen because of could be just what you were feeling that day. And just make sure when you go ahead, if you're going to do it, make sure with the manufacturer what they prefer before you make a change. And usually they do. They'll say, hey, use half moons or you can use flats, but don't just go on a whim change. Make sure with the manufacturer first. Make sure it's a safety thing. You don't need it blowing up in your face.
We'll call it customer service line.
Yep.
I mean, as far as it goes, if you go on that nock selector and it says you can use the GTF or the GTC or whatever, the nocks are made significantly thicker for the crossbow than they are for the actual, compound arrows, given the fact that crossbows are, very realistically, real soon, I think they're going to be in the 500 foot per second, area. And I mean, most are these days are right around, at 350 to 400 feet per second. And the Nocks that Lumenok makes, they're significantly thicker, than what, the average compound nock is. So they're designed to not explode. And that is definitely something that we do not want to happen.
No, not at all.
But then on the flip side of that, if you call the manufacturer, and the Nocks that came in the bolts that came with that crossbow, they're obviously going to recommend, you can only use, these products. Well, that I don't want to say anything negative about it, but if you could say that about any kind of product out there with any kind of variance, because the company wants you, to use their products. And as far as it goes, say Raven crossbows, we have a contract with them. We are the OEM manufacturer of the crossbow, the Raven bolt Nocks.
Okay.
And so, as far as that goes, you can only buy those through Raven, but we are the original manufacturer of those. And, that being the case, the name is still on, the package made by Lumenok. But, they're still, up some of the best crossbows out there. I mean, you don't get, these days anything, it's getting better all the way down the line in the crossbow area.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely everything is getting better in all the lines, whether it be a bow or crossbow. But I tell you what, we got to make our last break, and when we come back, we've got another question for you about the beginning of Lumenok.
All right, we're going to step outside, and we'll take a break. We'll be right back after this.
Acceleration is part of PSE's DNA. PSE pioneered the speed movement. Now they've developed the vapor category to help you find the most powerful bows on the market to fit you.
High speed equates to intense power and building the momentum you need to be successful. Are you a vapor shooter? Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back. Last segment of the show. We got a lot of good questions coming in tonight. A lot of good stuff. So, got a couple more that's just popped in here in the break.
Actually, one of the okay. So the first question is, how long has Lumenok been around?
Well, to my knowledge, the Price brothers, Mr. Eric Price and Mr. Curtis Price, basically had a similar situation to what many of us have had in the past. And, they're out hunting, they blow through a deer, and you're out a broadhead, you're out an arrow. And they're like, well, I want to do something to change this. And I believe the idea started coming out in like 1998, and they were in big, getting onto the store shelves, I believe in 2002 is when all of that was said and done. And, I started shooting them within 3 or 4 years afterwards. And, I was, I didn't know if it was a gimmick or what the deal was. So I mean, honestly, I watched all these hunting shows and Lumenok's getting more press and more press and more press. And as they stuck around for a year, 2, 3, I was like, well, maybe there's something to this. And then on the hunt right before I went out and actually bought a couple of packs back in, I think it was 2005 or 2006. And I'd shot 2 deer and I recovered the deer. I couldn't find my arrows. Broadhead, arrow, gone. The other one, is archers, we never miss.
Right.
It's the arrow's fault, the bow's fault, the east wind at 7 miles an hour. I can't tell you what happened, but I launched one somewhere into oblivion somehow. I think my release slipped off, and so I was out 3 arrows that year, and I mean I didn't have any thoughts of finding the ones that that I launched into the stratosphere. But the other 2, I mean, they should have been recoverable, somewhat behind that deer. And, you get under the leaves or a shot goes into the thicket, after it passes through or whatnot. And, we all love, digging through all those wild rose thorns and,
Right.
Everything else. That's our favorite to deal with. We like looking, we got attacked by a cat, after we were trying to find our arrows after a pass through. And well, finally on that year, I was just like, I'm done. I'm going to go give these things a try. And, since then it's been Lumenok. Lumenok's been in all my arrows. They're made to practice with,
Right,
hundreds.
exactly. So
18
years in the business, they kind of know what they're doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're made to be practiced with.
Exactly. And another question, speaking of years, what about temperature? Does single-digit temperatures affect them at all? Like if it's 0 degrees out, are we going to have an effect on the lightedness or how they're functioning? Or
not that I've seen. Even in Southern Illinois, I mean, we're on an average about 10 degrees in the fall and in the winter time. We're roughly about 10 degrees warmer. But I mean, I've been out, 0 degrees and even into the negatives, and I've taken deer, and I've never had an issue as far as it goes with a nock lighting up or not lighting up for that matter. So that's I mean, from my personal experience,
says no difference temperature wise, which is a good thing. Yep. That way you're not afraid to be out there when it is 0.
Well, I mean, I that's not my favorite time. I don't believe anybody's, but we all go into the woods looking like a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and it kind of is what it is, and kind of the torture that we put ourselves through. But the Lumenoks are made to be practiced with. They're made to be shot, over and over and over again. And I mean, I quite honestly, I go out, into my backyard, and I'm shooting. After the first 3 shots, the Nocks, I'll leave them on until I'm done. And, the batteries are replaceable. Mm-hmm. It takes maybe about 2 minutes to do it. A very simple process by all means. As far as that goes, you remove the nock from the arrow. And depending on the nock, there's one different, which is the X nock. It's kind of got an L-shaped bracket underneath that holds the battery in that way. But the rest of them, there's a wire. You unwind that wire, wiggle the battery out, and you'll see a black O-ring that's on that battery. Lumenoks are waterproof. You can go bow fishing with a Lumenok.
Nice.
They are as far as that goes, and then you just you simply pull the arrow, knock out or the battery out of the nock, and that O-ring. The batteries come in a 2-pack. It's like 2 for $5 or $5 or something like that. And I mean, as far as that goes, and it's not a bad process to change it. You uncoil the wire, pull that battery out, and then I do recommend. From experience again, do the swap over of the O-rings on a light surface, or even lay out a paper towel, because that little black O-ring in that circumstance is gold. And
right?
If it drops onto a darker carpet or just, goes under something, chances on you finding it before the vacuum cleaner are pretty much about as much as high as you go, and get a lottery ticket, and, it's a bad deal. So a white paper towel, white countertop, however you want to do it. That O-ring is gold in that circumstance.
Hey, we just got a comment here from one of our guys. Kyle says, done that before, actually. Highly recommended. He says, that's an awesome tip.
Yeah, no, it's, again, speaking from experience, and you're sitting there with the nock you can't use because the battery's not going to, it's not going to retain itself in there. But as far as it goes, you swap that O-ring out to the new battery, and you can use saliva a little bit for lubrication because rubber going into plastic,
Right.
they're, they don't like to cooperate together. So, I always just, give it a little saliva, work it back up in there. And then one of the ways that you can go ahead and test it to make sure that you have the battery installed correctly is use that wire you've got out of the way now. Touch one of the contacts. One's a ground, one's a positive. So once you hit that positive one, the nock will light up. You'll see that you've got the battery installed correctly. Wrap that wire right around the battery, put that nock back in your arrow, and you're ready to go for the next shot.
There you go, guys and gals. Sounds like some great advice on how to change the batteries out. So
absolutely,
definitely. So we got any more questions here?
Their motto is you bought our product. We just want to maintain it years to come. Just like if you buy a car,
right?
You go to the dealership. They say, hey, come back here for the oil changes.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the same thing at Lumenok. We don't want you to have to go out and buy another 3-pack of Nocks or anything like that. But we could just buy a $5 or $6 pair of batteries. Heck, I probably, as much as I shoot, I think I only go through 3 batteries a year. I always swap them out right before hunting season, and then I use them all the way through my, the off season and the spring and summertime. And, as they start to get dim, toward the end of the summertime or right before season, I swap them out. So, the runtime on them is just, it's great. Like I said, I shoot them. I don't turn them off until I get back in the house.
There you go.
There you go. Speaking of out of the house and up a tree and all that hunting stuff, got a couple questions for you. We typically ask this of all our interviewers. You're heading out to your tree stand. You're driving. What are you listening to on the radio?
Country.
Country it is. Old country, new country.
Old
country. So we got an old country.
By far.
Okay.
We're going to get along just fine.
Right?
Yeah, the newer, and it's been around a long time, but like Toby Keith, Trace Adkins, guys like that, and then, then before Cash and Waylon and, Highwaymen.
All right, so old country it is. Exactly. Yep. So you're listening to old country. What's your favorite snack to have while you're up in the tree or in your ground blind and you're waiting on that deer to come in? What's your favorite snack to have in the backpack? With me, I can't tell you. It's kind of going to be based on that day, and if I eat breakfast before I go out, or if I don't, a lot of the time I just go out there with a few bottles of water, and I'll usually bring a sandwich and leave the sandwich in the truck or something, because most of the properties that I hunt, I'm a disabled able hunter. So I have, stuff set up where it's going to be easier for me to walk to. And, when I need to get out and I need to walk around, I'll go to the truck and grab the sandwich, or, I'll stick it in my backpack with me. And heck, if I want it, it's there. If I don't, I'll bring it home, and, it's dinner or it's ready for the next day. Oh, okay. All right. So we got your country music. We've got your what you're going to snack on maybe out in the woods. But now you invited Dan and Mike over for a dinner, and you're going to make us dinner, and you're going to make us what you would be your go-to maybe venison meal or something. What would be the go-to meal that you'd say, hey, guys, I'm going to make this for you? I've got two. One is I've got a pretty famous chili that I put out, and then the other one is actually breaded tenderized venison cutlets, breaded with milk, egg, and bread, flour, and breadcrumbs. It's actually a German recipe that I use, and it's deep fried.
and then it's got a red wine reduction or a brown
almost
gravy.
like you're almost heading down like a stroganoff type thing.
Actually, more like a schnitzel, believe
Ooh,
it or not.
It's sounding good.
Yep. Pork tenderloin, same thing, same kind of process depending on where you go to. If you've got a Bohemian restaurant or a German restaurant or anything by y'all up there, you can, go check that out. The Wiener Schnitzel, the pork tenderloin, the pork schnitzel, it's the same thing, but I do it with venison, sweet cabbage, and red boiled potatoes, and you'll be snoozing on the couch about 15 minutes after because of a food coma.
It sounds like it. I tell you what, that sounds good. Okay, last question we got for you. Well, you just fed us that meal. We're not going to be snoozing, though. We're going to be listening to one of your favorite, maybe a hunting story, or a story that comes to you that you're going to tell us. What would that story be?
Oh, wow. There's a bunch of them. Heck. I mean, and a lot of them are the resilience factors of the deer. Just the amazing things that I've seen that just, completely and totally blew my mind. Like, heck, I shot, with a shotgun, I shot a buck, dropped him, first shot, waited about an hour to go get him. And he was laying, he didn't move a muscle. I was looking at him in clear field. There was nothing between me and him, nothing, no how. And got within probably about 15 yards of him, and he got up and it started moving his way away again. And he wasn't moving all that fast, but he had a little bit of a clip to it. And I put another round through him. Well, at that point, I didn't know that I had hit him. I had a buddy with me, and he had tagged out for the season. And part of this cool story is if you're familiar with like Jim Shockey, where he puts his bow above his head, and he's walking like he's a moose or an elk or something like that. And we kind of did that with my shotgun. And my guy that was with me, he put his head between my shoulder blades, and we walked through this little bit of a low. We saw this buck come out. So we were trying to close the distance on him, and that's what we did. We actually did that Jim Shockey maneuver. And anyway, so I shot again. I was shaking. I was happy. Cool. It was a good buck, a good solid 8. And and he was still walking after my second shot. I'm like, dude, here. And I handed the gun to my buddy, and he popped him again. Went about another 20 or 30 feet, dropped. And come to find that there were 6 holes in that deer through the vitals.
Wow.
And, it was, and that's with a 2 3/4 inch, sabot slug. And I've shot deer with my broadheads, and you follow a trail that looks like a river of blood.
Exactly. And here, look at this one. This one's got 6 holes in it, and it's still going.
It's interesting you bring up this point. We ask about the memories or a story you're going to tell, but you bring up the resilience of these animals, and that just, to me, that shows the respect that you have for these animals.
Oh, absolutely. I kneel everyone. I kneel down. I put my hand on it. I look straight up and, give the big dude up there a nod and
Absolutely.
say thank you very much. And, my uncle up there looking over me, helping me be safe and successful out there. And he taught me just about everything, my uncle and my grandfather. And, but yeah, there's another one. I like I said, I put a good, pump station shot on it. And, I'd watched like a river of blood following it, and somehow it made it dang near close to a half a mile. And I have no clue. It had to, spit out.
That's the amazing part of animals and how they survive, and
Absolutely.
and with what they have to persevere through to get there, right? Yeah. And look what you went through with that one. Speaking of that, we've been talking about Lumenocks this whole time, and we forgot one thing. Where can people go to find out more information about it? What's the website that they can go to look for Lumenock? Lumenock.com,
and right when you go on there, it's going to pop onto that web pop onto the website, and you're going to get that Nocks selector feature. And that, it's very simple. Top one, compound crossbow. Next one is going to be, I get these messed up all the time, but the next two are the model and the manufacturer of the arrow. And right when you put your info in, it's going to pull you up to your nock. You pick your colors, and I do have all three of them sitting here with me. Let me fire them up here real quick.
So we can see what they look like. Yep, you just go over to Lumenock.com. You go to the second selection, the Nocks selector. Make your picks if you're going to use a crossbow or a regular bow. And you can see on the screen, if you're on the podcast, get to our live stream so you can see
what he's got right here in his hand.
What color is that?
That would be the pink.
All right.
The St. Jude's pink. This is the one that stands out to me
the most,
the best. Yeah, and the HD orange is coming in going to come in a close second. And again, just thumb and forefinger. That one's off. You saw the green already. There's the HD orange.
Okay.
And then I'll fire up the original, the green. That was the first one that came out. I actually have one of my original GT Nocks that I had bought back in 2006 or whenever it was, and I still have it. It's still, if I put a battery in it, will light up just as bright as that one did. Just there.
That's awesome. That is awesome. You know what, Bill? I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. We've had you on for almost over an hour, it looks like, and we just wanted to thank you for coming on, talking with us about lighted Nocks, and if you're all set, I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I tell you what, we're going to wrap up the podcast portion here. As soon as we're done here, Bill, hang with us. But for those of you on the podcast, we're going to wrap up the show tonight. Next week, we're going to attempt to have a show. It's going to be pre-recorded. If not, that's because Danny and I didn't get our work done here behind the scenes this week, and we're actually going to be up north. But we've got something planned. We're going to try to get that out to you. So stay tuned.
Can't blame me for that part.
Hey, it's hunting season. What can I say?
You gotta get out to the woods.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody So everybody on the podcast, make sure you go over to Facebook, give us a like, follow, share. Do the same for Lumenock as well. And we're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. Check out
Twitter, Instagram.
YouTube. Go over there, give us a like, follow, share, and share the show for us if you would. And if you're listening on iTunes, make sure you go over and give us a review. That helps us out. And don't forget to go and check out the people who help us, our show sponsors that will actually save you some money in the long run. So that'll do it for us this week, folks. Y'all take care, and we'll be back again next week.
This episode was brought to you by PSE Archery,
Buck Bait,
Better the Hunt,
Rebel 6 Rubs and Seasonings,
Easy Cut,
Lim Walker Game Calls,
Sunrise Archery,
Total Peep,
Hunter's Blend Coffee,
Packer Max,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Scent Blocker,
Scent Lock,
Copper John,
and Stanislawski Release Aids.
Thanks for listening, and join us again here next week. Until then, remember, as we always like to say, if you're out on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe until next week on the Up North Journal.